Harper Audio presents The Earl's Mistress by Liz Carlyle, performed by Carolyn Morris. Chapter 1. England, 1856. Misery for one man can feel like slow absolution to another, and the misery that came to Northumbria in February could have absolved a man of capital murder. The Earl of Heppelwood had never committed capital murder. Well, not quite. But the incessant, bone-chilling cold and the spatter of ice that periodically hailed across his window-panes felt deservedly isolating just the same. Yet, if isolation it was a splendid one, bejewelled by its elegant, perfectly proportioned Palladian mansion, set amongst 80 acres of rolling parkland. The estate of Lufford was a showcase of ornamental follies, fountains and footpaths, the whole of it possessing a beauty even the wickedest weather could not dim. Moreover, all that elegance had been burnished by a grand infusion of new money, specifically his late father-in-law's mill money, until the house was now the finest gentleman's seat within 200 miles. Heppelwood reclined with feigned leisure in what was commonly referred to as his grandfather's study, for though the 6th Earl was 30 years dead, the house might as well have been still his. Heppelwood's father had cared nothing for Lufford. He had lived and breathed politics, and had let the place run to ruin. Heppelwood, on the other hand, lived and breathed sin. There was no better venue for either pursuit than London. He could not possibly return there soon enough, the Earl decided, tossing aside the letter he'd just read. He lifted a pair of ice-blue eyes to meet his secretary's gaze. "So our new governess brings us a reference from the Marchioness of Petershaw," he remarked, his mouth twisting. "How's that for irony, Jervis? A letter of character from La Seductrice, the most notorious lady in London." Jervis cleared his throat delicately. "One cannot always choose one's employers based upon their moral character, my lord." "No, I gather not." The Earl's mouth twisted further. "Otherwise you would not likely be working for me." Jervis's pale face infused with colour. As if to obscure the accuracy of his employer's point, he gestured at the desk's pile of paperwork. "The young woman has also brought a glowing recommendation from some country vicar in Sussex." "And quite a moralizing bore he sounds, too," said the Earl, rising languidly to circle around the massive desk. "Well, let us hope our Miss Aldridge is not as bland, demure and well-churched as the last one, for we're fresh out of curates for them to marry. Send her in." Jervis bowed himself from the room. An instant later Heppelwood's breath caught. Isabella Aldridge was anything but bland. She was instead a dark, fragile beauty, perhaps the most beautiful creature he'd ever beheld, with a face pale as porcelain and thick, inky tresses that the most severe of arrangements could not disguise. She was tall, too, he realized, as she swept her grey skirts through the door, yet far too thin for his liking. He exhaled slowly, and with no small measure of relief. She stopped some distance from the desk and dropped into a curtsy that was at once graceful and subservient, her hems puddling like quicksilver upon his blood-red carpet. "Your lordship," she murmured, flicking a glance up at him as she rose. "Good morning." Heppelwood's words were cool and clipped as he tossed aside her paperwork. "Miss Aldridge, I believe." She gave a nod that held something less than agreement. "Actually, it is Mrs., my lord," she said in a quiet, throaty voice. "Mrs. Aldridge. I am a widow." "Without children, I trust?" he said a little harshly. Her gaze faltered and dropped again to the carpet. "I was never so blessed," she replied. "It was the briefest of marriages, in my youth." Mrs. Aldridge did not look, however, as if her youth was much past her. Heppelwood stared her boldly up and down, willing himself to be unaffected as he motioned her to take the chair before him. Despite her dull attire and quiet demeanour, Mrs. Aldridge could not be much past 25 by his assessment, and Heppelwood was known to be a keen judge of female flesh. He suppressed a bitter smile.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?